All systems go. Cleared for takeoff.
What's up, everyone? Tyler Tamboline here, aka ToeTagginTambo, back for the Week 6 so far review show. We always call it that because if you haven't won yet, or you're still trying to get that W in, there was a lot of them this weekend over at SHIPITNation.com. We'll get to that, but you still have time. We got Monday Night Football coming up later, 2 p.m. Eastern. Talk more on that in a little bit. We'll be on the Mayo Media Network, Hoop, Title, and myself breaking down all things Monday Night Football. But we're here to break down Week 6 in review so far. We're going to look at these. We're going to look at the $20 Millie Maker winner. We'll talk about that in a second. Got Tyler from Line Star here with me. My guy Nades, as always. Get to that. But yesterday, we had a huge day. We had Hoop take on the early slate, 162,000. I got a King of the Beach seat. But our biggest congrats has to go to our guy D-Dry. We're about to review his lineup on this show today. He won the $20 Millionaire Maker for $1 million. The lineup was only 7 points and change off the optimal, which we'll get to. Before we get into it, guys, want to remind you very quickly, this show is brought to you and presented by Line Star. We're going to use Line Star to break down the perfect lineup. All of our ownership, for at least for 4 of the major sports, is provided by Line Star, so we appreciate that. They're going to hook us up there, and they're going to hook you up. If you go over to the site, shipitnation.com/Line Star app, or just go to linestarapp.com, you can check everything out that we're going to talk about today. And we're going to break it down further when we get there. Nades, I'm going to bring in our guest here first, Tyler. Tyler, what's going on, man? Only every second week we get to see you, but we love when we have you on here, and we're going to be breaking down the perfect lineup. But what's going on with you, man? What's happening?
Yeah, man, things are good. It was a good Sunday. You know, I'm pretty stoked to be going over a lineup with a SHIPIT Nation customer. It's good stuff.
Yeah, we're happy about it. Like everything was obviously good. D-Dry, by the way, has been on an absolute heater. You can check it out on our X, formerly known as Twitter, at SHIPIT Nation. You can go see it. But week 5, he won 121K. Then he won another 100K. These are in the showdown streets. And, it's this, that, and the other. It's because he plays this or whatever this. Then he goes and drops the hammer on him in the $20 Millie Maker. So a heater, baby. Love to see it. Everyone out there loves that. Shout out to our viewers here now. We got our guy Tweezy, as always. Appreciate you, man. Beetlebane is in the mix. Gonna get better. There's still time. T Trizzle here, as always, says cheap stack makes in the millie. We're gonna break that down. Justin, you're my marketing piece for the day, man. If you want any advice on getting those King of the Beach seats, go to the site, become a member now, shipitnation.com. Now's the time to join. NHL's back. We'll break that down in a second with a little tidbit on the tools here at Line Star. NBA coming back starting next week. We do have an NBA course where you can get better at that. But if you're looking for this, Justin, during the live finals qualifiers segment, there's a 15-minute breakdown where I go through all of my King of the Beach winners and break those down for you so that you can see at least the most recent ones that you see that you'd want info on and to be able to break down. So you can check that out there. Anybody who's a member can check that out. Nades, bring you in, man. We're going to talk all things week 6, but how you doing, my friend, on this early Monday morning?
Doing good. Didn't have the greatest week 6 so far, but basically broke even, so you can't complain about that. Obviously, had a lot of the pieces, didn't put a lot of them together in the right lineups, was on the right games, right players, but obviously got to be perfect, got to put them all together in the same build. Didn't happen, got most of the money back, had a really, really close sweat last night in the showdown streets. Where we'll talk about it. I'm sure you guys will talk about it. These defenses in prime time, man, I'm getting sick of them. It was the tight ends of last year, but hey, that's just what happens. We were close. I was a 1v1 away from shipping everything last night in my 4 teams or 5 teams that I played. So overall, it was good. Got most of it back, but the week's not over yet. We're going to review here, give you guys a better process, talk through some of the processes that we go through. Take a look at this. More congrats to D-Dry there. The $1 million. Absolutely love to see that coming from a SHIPIT Nation member. And if myself isn't winning or crushing, it's always nice to see either yourself, Tambo with another King of the Beach, Hoop shipping again, and then obviously the members crushed as well. So looking forward to it.
We just posted it up on our X there at SHIPIT Nation. You guys can go check it out there. It's a breakdown of all the biggest ones of the week, but we had a lot of others in Discord. So congratulations to everybody. Tyler, I'm going to kick it to you first before we get to the actual perfect lineup. Talk to us a little bit about what you guys have going on at LineStar. And then I'm going to let Nades talk too, because with the launch of NHL, he's actually talked a lot about it. We're not just using your ownership, but some of the tools and stuff we're using to create things from and get ideas around. But talk to us about what you guys have going on at at LineStarApp.com.
Yeah, at LineStar, we got a lot going on as far as, all the major sports, and then plus, NASCAR, golf, CFL, a bunch of different ones, obviously NBA, NHL, but we're all encompassing. We have all the stats you need to kind of develop your lineups. We got the projections, the ownership, and then we also have Props AI, which is a newer tool for us to help you guys prop betting with your either pick'ems or just regular sports books. So there's a lot of different stuff we got going on the platform. Easy to use, simple. You can also go back to any of the slates for free, just to kind of like look at your process and help figure out what is, the best way to approach every single week. I mean, you can go back years if you need to, and really dig in and figure out how you best want to start attacking slates.
Yeah, I love that call too. And again, talking about all the sports, when you're getting the slider bar up here, things are starting to move along. We got NHL back in the mix, so that's getting it a little wider. And then NBA is not even up there just yet because it's not back yet. So it'll be up there next too, and you'll get a little bit more. But all the sports are up here, even CFL. You've got esports are up here, different categories for that. NASCAR, WNBA, like literally every sport going on is what you guys cover. Go ahead.
And NBA should actually be up sometime today. They posted both contests on FanDuel and DraftKings. Nice. So now that those are posted, we'll get it up there.
Yeah, we'll have a lot going on for that too coming up as well. So I appreciate the breakdown there. Nades, talk to us a little bit about the NHL stuff, because you had mentioned before, and I'll just bring the tab up, but we obviously have the ownership coming over from LineStar, but what else are you using on the site when it comes to NHL for yourself, your own process, and then just things you're using to base things off of?
Yeah, so I use my own process. I've used LineStar for many, many years before we even were business partners here with the collaboration here between the two sites. Biggest thing I like is if you click into that box right there, you can do this for NFL as well, right? So the nice thing about LineStar, if you guys do get a membership over there, you can partner it with the SHIPIT Nation membership. It's the same price, kind of like us, all sports included. It's not separate packages. So that's the best part about it. But if you click into each player, you can see past performances against the teams. You can sort by, so like right there, if you click into the Florida box on the far right there, the blue highlighted one, that shows you his matchups, how he's done against Florida in his whole career, or as many game sample that we have. Same thing goes for NFL, same thing, same sorting. So like, that's what I love. I love to see that. You can look at last 5 games, last 20 games, their shots on net, their time on the ice, their power play minutes, all key features like you would look at like NFL, right? Targets, or their fantasy points per game. How many points is this defense giving up to this position? All things that are relevant to the NFL also are included in this. I use the same thing for NHL to base into my process, help look at different angles, look at matchups, things like that, along with the tools that I had created and put up on the site for SHIPIT Nation members. So overall, it's very good. And the best part about it too is there's an iOS app that is very, very, very easy to use. So if you are mobile, which many of you guys are out there on mobile, myself included, if you're traveling, something like that, there's an app that is very, very easy to use, comes with the subscription as well. So I love their tool. I've used it for many years, and I think it's a great partner with us over here and our price point together. You're still all in rate, very, very cheap for the value that you can get.
Yeah, and that's our goal with our partnerships, obviously, to build good partnerships together with good sites and other people that we believe in and believe in us. So we appreciate that. And then also too, just the complementary piece of it. Like there's certain things that we just showed you that we don't have. There's certain things that they don't have. It works well getting on a show like this. So definitely appreciate Tyler, Eric, the rest of the crew over there. Thank you to you guys. And LineStar, if you guys want to check it out, you can use promo code SHIPIT when you go over to LineStarApp.com. I'm going to save my marketing time. I'm sure it will come up later again, and we're going to get to these reviews in a second. But I do want to – they have TED Talks. This is my Tambo talk for the day. I do want to have this quickly because this comes up a lot, right? People join a site or they're watching shows for free and all this stuff, and we love that. This is not at Nick. Nick just brings up the point that made me think of this, because of some of the stuff from yesterday and just people seeing somebody win $1 million. Everyone's very congratulatory and all that, but you can still see the people that I didn't win, but it's nice to see someone else. And that's awesome. That's how I feel as well. If I'm not shipping or getting to the top, I want to see others win, but still saying his best season, learned a lot. I think one of the things is that you need to know about DFS. If you don't know this already, maybe it's a harsh reality for some, maybe some know it and are good with it. We talk about the mindset and the goals and all that stuff in the courses and the education and SHIPIT Nation education. But I will say this, like only one person could win the $1 million yesterday. Obviously there can be chops and things like that, but it's like we didn't win it either. It's the way it goes. So when you're into it, you have to know you're going to lose a bunch, especially if you're playing GPPs. I'm losing 85% of the time, if not more, for the season. Like 80 to 85% of the time, I'm not winning money. I'm still getting, like, what people fail to remember with that is like there's slates, if I'm in for 3,500 and I get back 2,900, like who cares? I lost some money on that slate. We move on. You can get blanked. It can happen. But then you're playing for the big wins. And that's why a lot of the time, some of the strategy talker, it all depends on how you approach things. You're playing for that big win. If you're not getting it this weekend, or it doesn't happen over the first month or something like that, there's no guarantee of any site out there or any community that you join that you're going to get winners. I mean, people might say it, but at the end of the day, it's just not true. And that's why what we tried to build at ShipItNation.com is it's a community. The things we can guarantee, a lot of fun, giveaways, contests, getting the content out early and on time to make sure you've got it. And if you're in a rush or don't have time, you can get it. Keeping the show short and sweet. Less is more, meaning less time focusing on stuff that's not going to actually help you, more time focusing on what can help you. Keeping the price low so that these deals and complimentary pieces can happen. That's the marketing I need to do versus tell you what our price is or go check all that. Go to the site. You want to see it. It's all on there. You can use the drop-down menus and see what we offer. You can click into the sports and see it. But if you're joining us, it's to join a community where you're around like-minded individuals, similar goals and mindsets. We all want to win the millie like D-Dry, who we're about to see here soon. But that just goes to show, and he mentioned it last night in the Discord. He'd said, like, at sometimes he wasn't sure. And then next thing you know, he's winning the 100K showdown, the 121K showdown, and now the millie maker. It's just you don't know when it's going to happen. You're trying to stick around and get in the game and get better and work on your craft. It happens in every sport. Golfers break through. A basketball player all of a sudden gets better and becomes a top player. One guy in hockey who was not a top player gets better and better and now is a team captain. Things like that. Like all this stuff changes what you're doing out there. That's my Tambo talk. It's like if you're joining up looking for a free ride, nobody has that for you. You have to go out and earn it yourself. Nobody cares. Work harder. We talk about it all the time. Go put the work in. Find a place you like. And if it's not SHIPIT Nation, that's okay. We appreciate you still. We support you. Hope you find what's best for you. All we can do is try and provide the best possible experience and opportunity to put you in a position to have that success. So we hope you guys enjoy it. We know a lot of members out there. Shout out to member Lay the House RM. He's the guy actually. Lay the House also said this in the Discord. He said it was crazy. Wasn't sure if I was ever going to win into these things or something like that. And then yesterday ships 2 King of the Beach seats in 2 random slates on the same day. So congrats to Lay the House. Got the job done there. But that's the end of the rant. Nades, go back to you, man. Let's talk about this perfect lineup. Desmond Ridder, Drake London together. No Washington run back. ETN, Mostert, Thielen, Amon-Ra. And then you've got Schultz, Kieran Williams, and the Vikings. Thoughts on this lineup? It actually used the entire salary, and the optimal is 233.8. Give me your first thoughts, Nades, on this one. It's very similar to when we get to D-Drive, but let's talk about this one first.
Yeah, my first thoughts are, number one, it makes a lot of sense. Kind of like what we saw last week, right? Perfect lineup, or the winning lineup last week made a lot of sense. This perfect lineup actually makes a lot of sense compared to a lot that we see, right, that are like 46.5, leave like $4,000 on the table because you got 3K guys dropping 30. This one makes sense, right? 3 running backs or 3 of the highest value running backs. Obviously, Mostert was in the best matchup by far. The no chain there, everything. Everyone knew Mostert was a great play. That's why he was 60% owned. Whatever he came in single entry, stuff like that. ETN in that game that everyone wanted to target. ETN just had a great game in that London game, right? Wasn't on a main slate, so that did probably help keep his ownership down a little bit. I know you and the team over here, we were all over ETN. So the interesting point is it took all 3 of the kind of smash mouth play running backs, right? Kyron Williams, Mostert, and ETN. Put them into the build. That's what you'll see in the Millie Maker build as well. The value stack, why you could have got on the Drake London and Desmond Ridder stack well, everyone was going to Josh Downs and Anthony Richardson, very, very similar price point there. And using our two DVP tools over at SHIPITNation.com, which I'm sure you'll showcase in a little bit, pops up again. Washington right there in that game, 28th in the league against wide receiver and quarterback. Well, Desmond Ridder right there, Drake London right there, also a pivot off of the other chalk stack that everyone was going to, that a lot of people wanted to go to, right, with the Gardner Minshew and Josh Downs stack there. Adam Thielen continues to do it each and every week. So overall, I mean, this lineup makes sense, and that's why you'll see the Millie Maker got there pretty close, within 7 points or 8 points, whatever it was, because he obviously builds lineups correctly. He's been crushing it. I love to have him over here. So overall, no real surprises here, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I'll break it down in a second, then kick it to you, Tyler. Real quick, Nick, nothing you said. You actually just reminded me what Nick had said, just to remind you guys, was I'm not shipping any contests or anything, but it's been my best season for sure by far, and I've learned a lot already. You actually said the perfect thing. That's how I think people just need to look at it, where I'm saying when you're coming in, I'm not winning every week, but other people are winning. That's the whole point. It's like if I could win all the time, it'd be great. But you know that's not going to be the reality. So what you're saying and doing is perfect, Nick. That's what it's all about. Come in, learn, get better. And what I always say is not just, everyone says trust the process, trust the progress. Put in the work, get a process of your own. That's why the courses come free and all that stuff. And then be able to go out and start seeing results. And then you'll start to see them start to pile up more and more, because now you're not relying on other people's picks and plays. You're creating a process for yourself, executing on it, and it'll feel that much more rewarding when those wins start to come for you. And it's not like, if you just stick with it, people say it all the time, just keep on grinding. We're giving you stuff that you can actually grind with. We've got tools that we're going to show off here in a second to let you guys see that, how maybe D-Dry got to some of his stuff and ways that you can put it all together. But definitely work on your own process, because that's how you can continue the success and get better, and not just worry about when someone like Hoop, myself, or others on our team are hitting and you have to follow hitting their plays. That's not the best way to do it. And that's not how you're going to always stay consistent and have your biggest wins. Nades, back to this real quick. You said it, but interesting note was, even if you went from Dalton Schultz to Pitts here, it was still like 231. So it still would have won the Millie Maker. But I love what you said about how this made perfect sense. Like, if you're not playing Minshew and you're not playing Christian Kirk, who is popular, throw in ETN. Now, he still had ownership. I'm just saying you're looking for some of these pivot spots. This was an auto lock. Everyone was playing Mostert. I'm not sure what, people keep trying to talk out of these situations. Again, when he gets to 50, 60% and stuff, I understand it. I fully understand. I play the game. I'm just saying he was obviously a good play at $6,400. You were going to be fading a lot if you wanted to take your stand against that, and that's okay. But people trying to talk all week, let me plug in Ahmed, or what about Brooks? Like, Ahmed got the touchdown. I said it on the show yesterday. Bet him for 2 touchdowns. That still didn't get there, but that would be the way someone like Ahmed makes his way onto an optimal lineup. It's just very unlikely he comes in and completely steals the game away, because even in a garbage time scenario, guess who probably got him to garbage time? It probably would be partly this guy and partly Tyreek Hill, who we'll talk more on in a bit as well. If you're not playing Chuba Hubbard, Thielen. Again, Thielen still had some ownership, but that makes sense to me. If you're not playing David Montgomery with no Gibbs, play a low-owned Amon-Ra. Makes sense. Schultz, when you had so this was another one, no Tank Dell, and people are looking between Collins and Robert Woods. Why not Schultz? He's got a good matchup there. He actually had a really good matchup, I think, on the DVP ranking. It was against New Orleans, right?
Yeah, it wasn't a great matchup, but again, Dalton Schultz. So New Orleans was number 1 in the league against tight ends, but you gotta look at the other factors, right? No Tank Dell. Dalton Schultz has back-to-back touchdowns. He's definitely the red zone guy for CJ Stroud, and they're definitely giving him red zone packages, and that's what you exactly saw. He caught that end zone. He caught that little slip out in the end zone. Stroud just threw it up to him and he caught it. So you got to look at little things like that too. The DVP rankings are good, but they're not all encompassing. They don't always encompass for guys like Tank Dell, who's a very big part of the offense being out. So that's one.
Yeah, you actually made my point for me that I was trying to get to. I forgot. I said it backwards. This was not the good matchup. This was just a leverage spot, like you just said, off of that. It was when I was talking about the perfect lineup and doing this pre-show, and we mentioned it a little bit. If you were to plug Pitts in here, he also didn't have a great matchup, but you were talking about a pre-show, Nades, is that you also have to consider Pitts like a wide receiver based on how they actually use Jonnu Smith as their guy there. And if you go to the DVP ranks, this is why I had this up, they also don't rank well against the tight end like Dalton Schultz. If you classify Drake London, Desmond Ridder, and then you classify Pitts as basically another wide receiver, like a slot guy, then he would fit into this mold as well. And if he went back to this build, he could have fit in this and left $100 on the table and still shipped the Millie Maker with this lineup. Sorry, that was a good point that you brought up. So I wanted to make that known. Tyler, your thoughts on this one? It's going to clarify. It's going to go with the winner anyway, but just give us your thoughts on this lineup and then we'll move on.
Yeah, I want to touch on that Dalton Schultz and how DVP sometimes is a little bit misleading. If you look to like who they have actually played, they haven't, that defense had not played a real good tight end. So obviously, if you're not playing a good tight end that is not getting the targets, then your DVP is going to be real low. And Dalton Schultz, we saw, last week, once Tank Dell went out, Schultz got peppered with targets. Tank Dell was out again. So no surprise that he got peppered with targets once again and made the lineup. It was also one of the faster games of the week. And then Amon-Ra St. Brown was a major difference maker here. I think, he was only like 4% owned or something very low. And Tampa Bay is a pass funnel D. They let guys pass on them. So no surprise that, he got just peppered with targets and got it done. And, got you guys a Millie Maker.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. And one note you made there too, I think is true. Like the Houston, New Orleans almost was one of those faster paced spots that I saw a lot of sharper players have like the Stroud stacks and things like that with a run back, whether it was Michael Thomas or Kamara or something along Rashid, who we'll get to on the winning lineup in a second. But the other thing too is also, I was going to bring up, this did not have any Cincy Seattle on it. And I know a lot of people were mixing that in. I had some Burrow, Mixon, speaking of mixing, and Mixon was in there, like all these plays and that. It just shows too, again, you can leave a game off. Like you don't have to put one from every single game that you want a piece of, but they really did try and get action in a lot of the good spots. No Philly in this one. Philly can spread it out. And with Hurts, you never know. You're not going to pay up for that. So overall, very solid. Let's look at the winning lineup from D-Dry, who, by the way, the spoiler alert now, we'll see. He hasn't quite got back to me yet, but we talked last night. So I think we're going to have D-Dry on the Monday Night Football Showdown show with Hoop, Title, and myself this afternoon at 2 p.m. Eastern. So hoping to get him on. But for now, let's look at the lineup. Same Mostert, Amon-Ra, Drake London, Vikings. And back to that Vikings D also, if you weren't playing like Fields or Foreman or anything like that, again, that was just another way to go against it. I had them in the slate plan. I like them or Chicago D, both pretty solid. It ended up being Minnesota at the lower ownership. So that's just something to note as well. But he had Kupp, he had Pitts, and Shaheed over, what was it? No Thielen.
Kyron Williams. Oh, yeah. He had Kyron.
No Thielen, no Schultz.
No ETN.
No ETN. There you go. So, Nades, I'll kick it to you on this one. Flipped it up a little bit, but I'll bring up some other stuff after. What do you see on this lineup with his lineup with the 3v3 there?
Yeah, I mean, so he definitely – I was looking at some of his exposures a little bit. Obviously, it's hard to tell really what all of his exposures were, but he was definitely heavily invested in Desmond Ridder. And kind of just took the stand that, hey, he's just going to go to another good matchup for a 5K quarterback that everyone, the popular 5K guy was Gardner Minshew, who was also in a good matchup, obviously didn't come through like Desmond Ridder did. And again, like I said, Kyle Pitts is basically a slot receiver for them and for that offense there. So you're getting a slot receiver at a tight end position at underpriced in a good matchup. So I really like that. You don't really need a run back because you don't know who it's going to be. Is it going to be Ryan Robinson, Curtis Samuel, Terry McLaurin, Logan Thomas, right? He's already filling his tight end position. Everyone wanted to go to Logan Thomas. He could have just went Drake London single stack with Ridder and put in Logan Thomas, right? One to one to Millie because Logan Thomas didn't get there. He was actually very chalky as well. So that's another little leverage piece in this too. Typically, a lot of people have been seeing these single skinny stacks, so you call it, winning these contests. He could have did a single stack, skinny stack, right, and run it back with Logan Thomas instead of Kyle Pitts. He went to win the Millie. So that's another little leverage piece there off of what the industry was doing, what ownership projections were looking like before the slate locked. The Amon-Ra piece, right? People were talking about Montgomery. You brought it up, right? No Gibbs out there. And Amon-Ra, it plays an incredible role there in Detroit. They want him back. Detroit is obviously a very, very high-powered offense. Throw Amon-Ra in there. He's also a little bit more expensive than Jalen Waddle, who people were playing in that Miami game, right? He's already got Mostert in the build, so he didn't want Jalen Waddle. He's a little bit cheaper than Jamar Chase. Couldn't get to Puka Nacua in that Rams game, which a lot of people were targeting. He's already got Kyron Williams. So he's still targeted very, very good game environments, just differently and put it together differently than what the industry was. The Shaheed piece, I want to pump our stack rankings a little bit because both of this game, the Saints game and the Falcons game, hit the top 10 in our stacks. That Desmond Ridder, Kyle Pitts, it was Jonnu Smith, but Drake London you could easily pop in Drake London there. But Rashid Shaheed actually pops there in the top 10 right there with Michael Thomas. Obviously, Thomas was the guy everyone wanted to play if they weren't playing Kamara in that New Orleans offense. And Shaheed they've used this guy all season long. He's a playmaker for them. He's kind of their Tyreek Hill, if you will. Poor man's Tyreek Hill out there in New Orleans. So overall, I mean, using our tools, using our content, which obviously he's a member over here. I'm sure he looks at all of our stuff along with wherever else he's subscribed to come on this and build his player pool. So congratulations to him. Excellent build.
Yeah, he mentioned that. I forget who it was, so the credit doesn't go to me. I just curated and put it together. But he said the London play he loved from the tidbits that I post on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. And he said that's where it kind of got him thinking like that. And then when you look here, you've got Ridder, Pitts. You put London in. He's got Shaheed. He actually, I got to, like I said, I'd love to, I hope he comes on the show today. I want to ask him about this, but obviously people will say, like, why wasn't Kupp in the flex? I just don't think he had any idea of switching it around, but like Kupp was up here. And just for the stack rankings, too, Nades, like going back to it, Downs, Christian Kirk, Kupp, Dalton
Robert
Schultz,
Woods
Stroud.
scored.
I think all these guys got touchdowns at least. Woods got a touchdown. Schultz got a touchdown. Curtis Samuel got a touchdown. Boyd got a touchdown. Shaheed got a touchdown, or at least had he got a touchdown. We just talked about him. Pitts, Smith got in the box. Ridder, like all these guys. These stack rankings have just been absolutely crushing. So I'm glad that you brought that up. Tyler, go to you, man. Your thoughts, anything extra you want to add to this one? I thought overall just, a little bit unique in enough spots, right? You've talked about this in the past too. I think it was last time you were on about not needing a run back either. And sure enough, like Nate said, most people would have forced in Logan Thomas or something. He did not.
Yeah, and on my Falcon stacks, I didn't force any run backs in either. Just, not really the spot to do that in my mind. But the lineup was really well built. I love the Shaheed play. The thing with Michael Thomas is at this stage of his career, his games are 4 or 5 receptions for 50, 60 yards. And even if he gets a touchdown, it's not getting you there. Shaheed is the big play guy that, could put up 100 and a touchdown. So I would way rather in a big GPP go with Shaheed over Michael Thomas, and not to mention, that he's cheaper and less owned. So I thought the Shaheed play was really nice. The London, that was one that I absolutely loved. I was all over him this week. And yeah, all in all, great lineup construction and congrats to him.
I want to see something quick. 14.2. He won. How many did he won by 11 points, by the way. So this is interesting to note. Okay. So going back here, I want to show this because we're still on the stack rankings. Funny enough, this is the other thing too. First of all, the Commanders and the Falcons were up there. Obviously, we like the Jags and Colts. Like a lot of the games were up there. That's another thing you can take away from this to mix pieces in. But I thought this, and I just looked it up. Even if he did want to run it back, do you know who was the same price as Shaheed? Curtis Samuel on the other side, and he put up 14.2. So he still would have won the Millie by 7 points if he did want to run it back and put Kupp in the flex or whatever. So just goes to show, again, like I said, I'd love to get him on the show. We'll see if he can make it this afternoon. If not, he said maybe Thursday. But either way, just to see his breakdown, what he says about it. But the other thing too, just my last takeaway, and we'll move on, was like, if you're committing to this Atlanta side, forget the Shaheed play because it could have been Samuel, whoever. It doesn't matter. But Ridder, London, Pitts, you're good. You're good on that. You go to Williams and Mostert. First of all, not just how good of a play Mostert was, so that's why he's 55%, but we talked on the Sunday morning show about odds. Title was bringing it up. We were talking some cash games, things like that on the 9:45 a.m. Eastern show on Mayo Media Network, free every week that we break down the main slate. He said the highest odds to score, the best odds in the the odds, the greatest odds to score a touchdown, I'm trying to say, Kieran Williams was like minus 200 on the slate yesterday, or minus 180 or something. Mostert was right behind him with Tyreek. So you put in your stack, you put in those two running backs, regardless of ownership, because I'm talking about that in a second. Then you talk about two PPR guys that just get all the catches for their team. Amon-Ra and Kupp just jam the best two PPR guys in. The Vikings D, whoever he lands on here, Vikings ended up mattering, but I get like you just sort of land where you land. And maybe this sort of cost him $1 million if he didn't land on Minnesota, sure. But I'm saying the point being, it's not that crazy as what some people will look at this and say like, oh, it's a horrible lineup. People say this should have been swapped with Kupp. I hear that argument. Someone will say that. But from my point of view, great when it comes down to it. And then lastly, if Pitts had got to 15%, people would have said he's a horrible play at Thursday. And I get all that. But again, when you have a 10% London in there, a 4% Ritter, that's how you can still play a guy like Pitts at ownership. I mean, he didn't even get to 10 in the end. Everyone was complaining about it. He only got to 9. So it's like people worry about that stuff way too much. It's all about how you put together the whole package. Get a few leverage pieces in there or low-owned pieces in Shaheed. Amon-Ra at less than 5%. Vikings at 3%. Ritter under 5%. And you're good. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I have another piece about the Vikings D, and I'll throw it up here, Ross, too. Ross saw what I was about to hit on here. But if you go to the DVP rankings real quick as well, and you type in Chicago, right? People wanted to say, well, Justin Fields, right? He's playing Minnesota. Oh, Justin Fields has been good. He's been doing it. DJ Moore is the guy. Type in Chicago and look over there in the D. I get it, right? D points, whatever. You can say what you want to say, but Chicago has given up the second most points to opposing defenses on the year, obviously with Justin Fields playing the way he was. Hey, guess what? Everyone was trying to make the Justin Fields, DJ Moore thing work again. If you go to our stack rankings, they were way down the board as well, way down towards the bottom. And DVP, Chicago ranks up pretty good. Minnesota's got a pretty good price there, $3K. Why not? Why can't it be Minnesota there? Why can't Minnesota's D get to Fields? And why can't we see Fields regress here after 2 big weeks? So that's a piece that I wanted to pull out too. Just touting our tools more here, right? That why make sense, right? We're not just results oriented. You don't want to just say, oh, this guy won the millie. It's all about how you could have arrived on a scenario like this, right? And put that puzzle together before anyone else puts it together, like you always say, Tambo.
Yeah, I love this one. Like you said, I always look at this too. Like if a guy's down the board, that's where I'll consider it. Like for some of those plays, like if you're not on the Bryce Young stacks, it actually worked out okay. Our guy Mayo got a King of the Beach seat with a Bryce Young stack, and you could stack it up with Thielen and Chuba. But if you wanted to use like a defense against, or if you wanted to use Hubbard because you're not using the passing attack, if you want to use Minnesota D or the Jets D because Hurts and Fields are way down this board, that's just, again, building something that makes sense. We're not talking about the results and what it doesn't mean it's going to work. We're showing results and going through them, but we're trying to talk it from a process standpoint of saying, this is why that lineup would make sense to me. Like I built one here, Nades. It got almost 200 points. So it wouldn't have won the millie. I think it would have won the mega millie or came very close, but just have a look here for a second. I've got Sam Howell with Curtis Samuel and then Jonnu Smith. Okay. So you put those three together. You got Raheem Mostert, who we already knew was a good play. You play Hubbard because Bryce Young is down the board. You play Christian Kirk because we liked him. You play Kupp because we liked him. You play Minnesota D because Fields is way down the board. And you land on Tyreek Hill, who I talked on the show yesterday. What was a way to get different with Mostert was to say it's not just Mostert. Miami scores with others. And then you just hammer all of them in there and hope that Mostert takes more of the Tua stuff so that it's just Tyreek that's needed. And that it almost wasn't the case because freaking Mostert throws or Tua throws the first one to Mostert. So I'm like, oh God, it kills my plan. Someone even asked in our Discord about playing Mostert with Waddle. And I said, I don't like that as much because I think if Waddle gets there, it's going to be that 2 touchdown
in the
game
red zone.
Want Tua, right? And in the end, it kind of worked out and we got there. But just to say it, like that is how I'm always looking at things, at least from my point of view. Anything else from either of you guys on the Millie Maker winner and as far as that lineup goes?
No, overall,
I think we hit it.
Field.
Okay, I'm going to bring up people wanted to see my King of the Beach lineup. just to break it down. And it was a smaller field, higher dollar. I was in on 4 quarterbacks heavy yesterday. Stafford was right behind them. So this is kind of a product of that. But a lot of this stuff was where I was at. Like, for example, I moved Hurts up the board yesterday once we got the official news that Sauce Gardner was going to be out. We already had DJ Reed out, but this was the build. So higher dollar, smaller field, Stafford to Cup, ran it back with Ertz. I didn't need this in the end. I actually had Logan Thomas in there just because his matchup, I thought it was better. But I said, if I'm doing this, I'm just going to run it back and just see if it works, hoping that they get up. And that's the run back. I played the triple from this game, Mostert, Hubbard, and Thielen, just to get the 2 guys for all the pass catching on the comeback of if Mostert does his job. That's kind of how it worked out. Funny enough, Hubbard and Thielen scored touchdowns before Mostert ever did. It's not the way you expect to get there sometimes, but that worked. I was big on Foreman. It did not work out. Badgent, the backup to Fields, came in and stole the 1-yard touchdown at the end there. So could have got a little more out of Foreman, but ended up being okay. Foreman with the Bears D was one of my plays there that I liked. And then obviously plugging in A.J. Brown to get a guy that I thought was just in a better spot. He had 2 touchdowns slip through his hands there. One slipped through his hands, and then the other one was he went out of bounds with like the 5-yard line or something, did not get it. So he could have had an even bigger day. But overall, just people wanted to see the breakdown. Nades, I'll kick it to you. Higher dollar, smaller field, but it's kind of just built to, I think I won by 11 points or 12 points or something, maybe more. It might have been 159. So decent delta from winning this one, but that's how you want to play these higher dollar, smaller fields, just to get some separation. That's why you can see some ownership.
Yeah, overall, great build. We always talk about it building for the contest that you're playing. Obviously, yourself, myself, throw our lineups. We build specifically for our main contest, whatever it is, and then throw it in other stuff as well. But that's what you do a great job of, and I think that's very important, especially for a lot of the people that are out there probably watching this show, right? You guys, a lot of you probably build 5 to 10 teams, 3 to 5 teams, right? A lot of hand building or like sub-optimized hand builds, as you like to say, Tambo, and that's the most important thing. You build differently, especially when you are not MMEing and maxing. Just build differently. So that's one point that I want to call out. The AJ Brown play was good. I loved AJ Brown. I know you loved AJ Brown as well. The interesting point about that is he's a little bit cheaper than who everyone wanted to play in that range, right? Jamar Chase in that Bengals game. Everyone was playing Jamar Chase. He came in with heavy ownership, and AJ Brown at a fraction of the ownership in a very good match, not a great matchup, but they use him just as much as they use Jamar Chase out there in Cincy. And you had to expect it was going to be a pretty competitive game there in New York between those two teams. So I love that play. And that's when you know you're pretty chalky. You can't just go in and plug in Jamar Chase, even if you had the salary there, because that just makes it a lot more chalky. And when you split these seats, it's not fun splitting a seat and going to a tiebreaker to get that contest seat. So that's one way. All you need is one differentiation piece in there, and that was it.
Yeah. So Tyler, did you have anything on this? Or if you could talk about it a little bit too. I don't know exactly the certain contests that you're playing in, but like I basically had this in sort of the smaller field things, 150 or less people. Like this is where I didn't love Stafford as much for large field because he was getting more ownership and things like that. And I was doing things like getting how I got to AJ Brown here. I'm not getting to Hurts, but I was able to get to still Cup and Ertz and Marquise Brown. And I had some good secondary stacks using that game because the stack rankings loved it and all that. But I was playing the Dobbs side in large field stuff, and that did not work out. He has not worked for me ever yet. So give me your thoughts on just playing some of these lineups for the certain fields that you're in.
Yeah, I mean, you obviously have to build the lineup according to that field. And when you're going into a contest with only, 150 people, you don't need to be as worried about ownership. You do need to get different. And you can see you don't need to be as worried by ownership. You have Mostert 72% owned, Stafford 33%, Cup is high owned, Hubbard 61%, but you still were getting different because of those different, makers, like throwing Thielen only 11%, having him with Hubbard big time, takes away from and makes you different than everybody else. And then you throw in AJ Brown, who on paper, it looked like a very bad play, but once Sauce Gardner got out, that play got much better. They play a lot more man. AJ Brown crushes man, and now their best corner is out. So I think there's a lot of stuff here that makes this lineup interesting and good. And obviously it was good because it won you the seat. So kudos to you. Nice build. And the other thing I would point out here is AJ Brown is the only play in the entire lineup that isn't correlated.
Yeah, I do still put a lot of correlate. Like I said, I thought back and forth. I didn't need to do the Ertz thing, but I thought if I'm truly getting something out of Stafford, like I said, I always say you can play Cup as just a PPR beast, and you don't need Stafford to go with him. But I'm thinking, and I did not, by the way, get anything out of Stafford. 13 points, and thinking I'm getting a lot more. Well, he gets 31 almost. But if you're gonna think you're getting something out of Stafford, I'm thinking about leveraging the Kieran Williams ownership, and I'm thinking they're up. And then I'm thinking Zach Ertz has to get more. Zach Ertz didn't even get catches till the fourth quarter, I believe. But Trey McBride was getting a bunch. So every time I see number 85 get up off the ground, I'm like, I'm looking for that 6 because Ertz is 86, right? Number 86. So anything else there that you had on this one? I thought you brought up some interesting points.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much all there. I liked the build. I thought it was interesting. I didn't play a ton of Stafford, but once again, I'm playing bigger contest GPPs there. And the whole reason I didn't get there is, like you said, the upside isn't fully there. The other thing is he ends up hyper targeting, one or maybe two receivers. And with that, Cup or Puka, there's usually one guy that goes nuts where you can get a lot of those Stafford points through them.
Yeah, I agree. One thing you brought up I do want to add is another piece, just a strategy piece for those that maybe don't see it this way or how I'm thinking about my stuff. People sort of, I didn't think of it like that. But here's the thing, like another angle to the Mostert being so high owned. How many people are playing Mostert and Hubbard together with Thielen? So first off, in large fields, it's less of this than you think. In the smaller dollar, in the higher dollar, smaller entry fields, this is a more intermediate, let's say, move where people will do this. There's a lot of casuals that play on like the $20 Millie Maker that would never put two running backs against each other because they think that's a bad play. That's a way to limit it. Now, these guys were both owned. So you'd say, well, no, it doesn't look like that would happen very little in this tournament that you were in. But remember how many are adding in Thielen, and clearly not as many were. So twofold. One, doing this and adding in another piece is taking it from the level you're saying that when you see these ownerships, it doesn't look like many people faded them both. That's true. But then nobody really put Thielen in with them. And then that's another thing is even if Mostert wasn't in here, or even if he is with them in here, how do you cut down the ownership and chop it a little bit? You mix Hubbard with Thielen, and that, no one has that combo together, really. They're going one or the other. But if you're telling the story of Mostert smashes, and he smashes so much that it's worth playing him at 72% in this field, you're going to need a lot from these guys on the run back. And that's where I was thinking Hubbard was a known commodity, essentially getting these targets that we knew about. And then Foreman was the guy I liked even more than him. And he got lower ownership in this tournament. Pairing him with the D, though, didn't get enough out of him, but got enough to do the job. And that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, I agree. And I want to just touch back on that real quick is nobody really plays two running backs from the same game. And the rules, when I was making my lineups, one of the things, I usually only let one running back from the game, but this was one of the games that I did allow two in. And just for the reason being that we know that the Dolphins will target the running backs a lot and have made big plays from that. We know Hubbard, he was the third down back, so obviously they're, willing to throw to him. So with those two pieces, I was like, yeah, I don't mind two running backs from that game because it could happen through the air.
Yeah. And price matters too. Another level that I don't think people always go to is like, again, if you're playing, I'm trying to think of a battle that you could think of, but when they were, I don't know, like if you have a CMC going up against a Barkley, could they both get there? Yes, because they can catch passes and all. Could it still happen? Yes. I'm just saying it's not as ideal because then you've got two expensive guys that both need to get their full ceiling on their prices. This is a $4,300 backup that you can plug in and just say, and he was already getting work and you knew a little bit more of him. And Myron, thank you as always for joining us. We just talked about him, but the Millie Maker winner played him. But it's like you said, that's 2 weeks in a row now. Ritter has shown up. So maybe it's something to consider, and he needs to be a little bit more. I know Thielen needs to be a little bit more. He continues just to dominate at this price tag, but Mostert probably going to need to be a little bit more, but that gives us something to think about moving forward on these other slates. I'm going to review just one or two others quickly of mine that I had, because the tool is broken today with missing some pieces, but just to show it, I know Hoop had lineups like this as well, but just to see it, like this was one of the ones I played in the 555 milli maker. It did not go well for me in that one, but overall in the day was solid. Again, came 10th in the FanDuel main $55 choose, 7th in the World Championship over there. Almost got the job done on FanDuel with the one lineup that I had that had a lot of duds. So it was a good day overall, but this is just to show you guys some more stuff. Minshew, Pittman, Downs, Ingram, Kirk, the overstack, Mostert, Jamar Chase. I believe it was rounded out with, I want to say, I think it was Lockett and the Miami D, or Lockett and another D, but it was just another setup where I overstacked it, triple correlated it to make it almost like a 3-game parlay. And then this was another version of it. So just going back to using similar plays, but flipping it around some. I have Mostert, Chase, Downs, Lockett the same. It was Lockett for sure up there, 5,700. I think that left 33. So maybe it wasn't Miami, but it was something like that. But just to show how you can flip it around, Burrow, Chase, Boyd, the run back with Lockett. I talked a lot about how people were going to be playing more Kirk and Downs, and I was liking Ingram at just the slighter lower ownership for the secondary combination, and then Mostert again. But Nades, I'll go to you. Any quick thoughts on some of the other stuff? I mean, realistically, I'm using this. Like, you know what I mean? Going back to our stack rankings, there's Burrow. We like that. Using the Minshew stuff and both sides of that game. It was literally right here. I wanted pieces of that action. But your thoughts just on some of the other builds yesterday, maybe some of the things you did yesterday that you want to talk about.
Yeah, I build very similar to you. I don't do the overstack quite as much, but I'm not playing up in the 555 and in some of those higher stakes that are lower fields. I talk about all the time. My favorite contest I play is the $33 5 max. I love that contest, 25K to first. But I did a lot of the same things, and you use the content just like I use the content. That's why we get on this review show and go through and show these stack rankings. You can see the timestamp on there. We don't change this after lock, right, to help portray a different image and, oh, look at our stuff, it's the greatest. Like, these don't hit every week, but they've hit 5 out of 6 weeks. And we talk through them, and I look at these, I wait for the update. We usually get a final update after all interactives, everything. You got about 45 minutes to an hour once the final update hits to retweak your teams using this. Obviously, we got the preliminary numbers up there, and you'll see that timestamp at the top, but just goes back to show you how you're putting your money behind the tools. I put my money behind the tools and the content, and it's done very well. Got very close last week. Obviously, our members, we talked through these tools, right? Desmond Ridder right there. Kyle Pitts. You got Rashid Shaheed, the Millie Maker winner right there popping in the top 10, right? It was 11-game slate, 22 teams on the slate, and both of those teams you could have built if you look at these plays from the top 10 on this list. So over half the slate wasn't showing up in this list. And that's just the way, talking through it, how to build it. You build great lineups. I've learned a lot from you, and I build very similar to you. So,
yeah, I love it, man. This is the fun, is going back and trying to piece the puzzle together when you have the results now, where you can see some of this stuff, and it just helps you maybe next time. Like I always say, maybe it's next week when you're checking it out and you start putting this together and saying, well, if I just land here, or maybe this gives you, as if you're a member, at least. If you're not, go to ShipItNation.com now, join. But if you are a member, maybe it gives you the confidence to say, well, I just saw him use Shaheed. I could do that. Or maybe you say, I'm going to overstack it like Tambo does. You watch what my lineups. You say, I would have put Samuel in there. You still would have won the millie. Like that. He still won the millie in that lineup that we looked at. It would have still been a win by 7 or 8 points. So either way, it just goes to show using this stuff, putting it together, working on your process does help. Tyler, did you have any final thoughts or anything else you want to cover for today before we get out of here?
No, I just want to say thanks for having me. I enjoyed it once again, and I'll be back in a couple weeks.
Yeah, if you guys haven't done so yet, get on over to LineStar. Check it out. You can use the promo code SHIPIT as well. It's down in the description below. But that's the way to do it, where you guys can go piece these two things together, use the tools we talked about here, use their tools. You can go back, review even further. Like you said, you can go back. I pulled it only back to 2020. You can go back quite a ways to check things out. So if you want to spend more time on doing this stuff, we try and just give you a brief overview. But that's going to do it for this week, guys. We'll be back next week around the same time. Be sure to check out the 2 o'clock Eastern show on the Mayo Media Network. You can check out our X at SHIPIT Nation, mine at ToeTagginTambo. If the news that D-Dry will be on the show comes out, I will definitely get it out to you. Let me just see here. Let me see real quick. Like, the man should be enjoying his night, I'm sure. But just in case, we'll check it anyway, just while we're here live. If my Discord would work. I hate when I do that. I pull it off, and then it's going to be back. Yes, sir. Still good to go. So there it is. The final drop at the end of the show. D-Dry, the Millie Maker winner, will be on the 2 p.m. Eastern show on the Mayo Media Network with Hoop, Title, and myself. He'll be on. He can give you the real breakdown on how he got to it. We tried to decipher it today, but he is going to join us. It's up there. You guys can go see it in the link to check out what we're talking about. Go check it out there. If you want to get in and be a member, now's the time to join. Get in the Discord. D-Dry is in the Discord. Everything's going on in the Discord. But if you want to just see the content more than we showed you today, you can try it out for the trial for $19. But it's as little as like $13. You can get as little as $11 a week if you go out there and check it out for that. So monthly, 6 months, and annual packages available. You get the course when it comes to NFL, 4-hour course breaking down roster construction process, live finals, my King of the Beach stuff on how I keep getting these seats, showdown, how we keep having success with that, member Q&A, and the NBA course is out now. If you're thinking about playing NBA DFS, we're going to absolutely crush that as well. So get in there now, shipitnation.com. For Nades, for Tyler, thanks so much for joining us. And for myself, ToeTagginTambo. Let's ship it.